Perrin, and this is DataFriday. Today we are going on our journey with Spark. We're continuing there, and we are going to drill a little bit more into the dataset on Dataframe. If you remember the last two episodes, we were working with COVID-19 data, and I wanted to go to more analytics with it. I started working on it, and I unfortunately break my AI model. So this is coming late. This is coming in a future episode. If you were expecting this one and you are a bit disappointed now. So let's understand what is a dataset, what is a data frame. Okay. So as we already discussed a little bit, the data frame is a unit of storage with its APIs, which you can use into Apache Spark. So in some way it's pretty similar to a relational database. So a table in a relational database with some benefits. So if we start looking at it, okay, you've got like a table. And you can have something like first name, last name, and let's say whatever, age, and citizenship. Okay, let's go for citizenship. Okay, citizenship. You can have an ID and all those things as you want. Okay, so when you look at that, that's a traditional relational database, and you can have names like I can have George, Perrin, my age, well, so far 49, and I'm French. So this is a record or a row, and when you're doing that with Apache Spark, you are actually doing a dataset of row. Okay, so the row here is this specifying type, which is going to be very useful for storage because it has a very powerful storage mechanism behind the scene, and called tungsten in Spark, and this is highly efficient. Okay, this is highly efficient storage. It's not relying on the objects you would have in your Java virtual machine or JVM. So we've got a row. So this concept here is not a dataset, not a row, not a dataset of rows. It's actually called a data frame. Okay, and data frame. Okay, and that's how I spell it. One word, all lowercase. It's my spelling. I think Webster Dictionary has not yet put it in the dictionary, so. It's probably something that is not exactly how you would find it. You find different spellings, but it's the same concept. So you are not forced to have a dataset of rows. You can have a dataset. In this case, this could also be a POJO. Okay, and I'm thinking about my friend at work, Steve McMahon, who hates POJOs, and I completely get that. So, but a POJO could be, I could have a field F name, L age, and citizenship in my POJO with my getters and my setters, and this is my plain old Java object, which we, except for Steve, we all love. Okay, so, and this could be, if this is an instance, this is a class called person, I could have something called a dataset of persons. Okay, so why would I do that? Because you may want to use persons because you don't care about optimized storage, because even if it's big data, you want to use Spark on small data and you don't care about the optimization provided by row. Granted that some of the methods are also only working on dataset of rows, data frames, and not dataset of something else, of a POJO like person. Okay, so let's look a little bit into the code, okay, because I think 5 minutes of theory about that is plenty enough. Let's run Let's first understand how we can actually create a dataset of anything without ingestion from a file, okay, but directly from code. So let me run this one. And I updated my Eclipse, so I'm really sorry, but the tree, I haven't managed to change the size of the fonts in the trees there. So this is array to dataset app, as you can see here. It's from chapter 3 of Spark in Action 2nd edition. So let's run it. Run as Java application. Okay, sip of tea. As you can imagine, it's going to be a very complex application. Okay, so this is a simple data set which is displaying with one column of value, and you can see that the schema is really a value of string here, and it has 4 values: Jean, Lise, Pierre, and Loïc. Okay, so how do I able that? So let's have a look at the code here. Okay, so in my code here, as you're probably now familiar with, I am going to have my imports, okay, dataset encoders and Spark sessions. I don't think we've ever used encoders yet. And then I've got my main, creating an instance of my app. Then the first thing is I'm creating a session, okay, a Spark session, and then I'm just taking a basic static Java array wrongly called string list. Maybe it should be called string array, with my values Jean, Liz, Pierre, and Loïc. And so, and then what I'm doing actually is I'm turning that into a list, okay, a list of string called data. And then I am going to ask Spark to create a data set. Okay, so look at the syntax here, okay? So it's a dataset of string. It's not even a POJO, it's really a string. And then I'm going to ask it to create a dataset from the list, and I'm specifying an encoder, okay? So prior to DataFrames, Spark used RDDs, resilient distributed dataset, and they did not need the idea of encoding. Okay, but what it comes with the data frame is you've got the data and you've got the encoder as well. So you could say, yeah, it's pretty obvious, it's a list of strings, so I could encode as a string. Granted. But sometimes it's more complex and you want to be able to have an encoder. And let's look at a little bit of a more complex example now. Okay, so I'm going to lab 310 here, and lab 310 is it's array to dataset, then to data frame. Okay, so you will see some similarities. Let's run it. Clear that. Let's run it. Sorry, run as application. Have a sip of tea. Could have a longer sip of tea actually. Okay, so similar results. Okay, how scary is that? But I have it twice now. So let's look at the code. Same thing, my imports. Okay, now you see that I've got a row here coming in. So, and then I can actually, okay, my app, instantiate, start, get my session, create my list as we just did before, create my dataset of strings, and what have I done after is I'm asking Spark to convert it to a data frame. Pretty neat, right? So if I'm doing that, by doing that, I'm actually having a data frame after. Okay, so what's the benefit here? Benefit is I created it with something I knew, okay, with its basic list here of values, and I created the data set, and from there I can actually transform my data set to a data frame, and now I can use all the optimizations that Spark is providing on the data frame. That's pretty neat. Okay, and it's only a method away. Okay, next lab, lab 320, which is the last lab of chapter 3 of Spark in Action 2nd edition. Now we are going to take a CSV, which is containing some book data, and we are going to transform it to a data frame. Okay, so let's run it. Let's run it. Run as Java application. Okay, I can have a lot of tea. Okay, so let's look at what is happening here. So I'm ingesting the data as a book in the data frame. That's it, and then I have my books. Okay, then I can actually transform that into a data set of books, and we'll see that. And you can see the things can be a little bit different after, and then I'm going to put that back into a data frame. And that's the schema there. Okay, so look at all these details. First, let's look at the data. Okay, we should probably start by that. Well, let's look at the data, but let's look at what the file that is. Okay, so okay, books, data the books. Okay, sorry, data the books. Okay, so oops, this one opens in Atom. So let me show you from Atom. Okay, here. And sorry, we've let's do it differently. Well, okay. So sorry, it's very small here. That's probably getting better. So you see, it's traditional CSV files, nothing fantastic here. You see the IDs, the offer ID, title, release date, and a link. So it could be really a dump from any database, relational database, and that's how it would be. Okay, so if I randomly pick a book here, let's say I can take one of my previous kind of essay. This book is Informix 1210 on Max 1012 with a dash of Java 8, and you see that I released that on April 23rd in 2017. It was kind of a quick book, and you can have the link here on Amazon. Okay, so that's one, or any other book. Okay, nothing magical here. So let's get, we've got the data, no traps. Okay, no traps in the data here. Then let's look at the code. Okay, so what am I doing here? Let's reduce that. We'll go back to the console when we need it. So first, imports. We are going to use, and we start using more and more, and throughout the book we'll use more and more of those functions, the static functions like concatenation, expression, literal, and to date, okay, which are transformation functions in Spark. Then we are going to use some serializable, because the class needs to be serialized so it can be actually shared across the nodes where we run Spark, and some Spark APIs. Okay, and some dataset encoders, etc., and also a POJO. Okay, okay. So we can get a POJO out of the way quickly. It's a POJO. Okay, you've got the book ID, basically author ID, title, release. Plenty of getters and setters, some comments, you know, the usual. Really nothing magical here. So, and I'm importing that because I'm going to use it. Okay, so let's skip for now the book mapper. Okay, we'll go back to the book mapper. Then here I have my main, okay, and as I usually do, I instantiate the app and go to start. Then start. That's where the meat is. I start a session. Then I configure my session. This is thanks tapping for that. This is something I missed through the migration through the final version of version 3. The time parser is a bit different, so this is using the legacy time parser. I might actually work a little bit to clean that up in the future. Then what happens? Okay, I'm going to read my file. Okay, my file name is there. It's books.csv that we just looked at. And what am I doing to do is we done ingestion before, so basically I'm asking my session, get the read method, specify the format, specify options, okay, infer schema, editor, and having the file name. Okay, so and I'm loading, and then I'm going to show it what's going on there. Okay, so if we go back here to the code we run, okay, book ingested in the data frame, 5 rows, and when you look at the schema, you see that okay, it could infer an ID here, it could infer a date, an author ID. Okay, so that's integer. The title is still a string. The release date is a string because I didn't specify a format. That's kind of odd. It's not a traditional. It's the American traditional format, but kind of not really. And so he could not detect that it was a date. Spark could not do that, and then the link as a string. Okay, so let's go on. I could here specify the option for the time format. Okay, and we'll see that later. Then I'm actually going to create it from this data frame. I'm going to create a data set of book. Okay, so how am I going to do that? I'm going to use a mapper. Okay, and this is really, it's kind of map reuse under the cover, but let's not get too excited. So I'm going to use a book mapper. Okay, it's a new instance, and I'm going to use an encoder, which using a bean being the other name of a POJO, and based on the book.class. Okay, so Spark is smart enough to get that, to introspect the class and to create the right encoding for based on my book. So let's have a look now at this inner class I just have, which is book mapper. Okay, so if I go to book mapper, I've lost my book mapper. Okay, here's my class, book mapper. Okay, what am I doing? So mapping is all its work is basically it goes through all the data, and as it goes through all the data, it's calling a call method, very originally here, a call method, where the value is a row. Okay, so my row, and then I know that in my row, and you have it right down there, I've got a column called ID, a column called call ID, and order ID, link, and title. Okay, so, and what I'm just doing here is I'm just calling the setters of my POJO. Okay, after instantiating a new book. What am I doing afterwards is because I'm going to convert my data string, but that's so I could actually you see I'm doing the same thing here. I'm getting a data string from the value called the release date, and if it's not null, I'm going to use a simple formatter, to the Java simple formatter, to create a real date, and in my POJO having a date instead of a string for the release date. Okay, and then I'm returning my book. Okay, my book here, my instance of book, I'm returning it, and that's it. That's my mapper. Okay, so basically I'm getting a row, and in my row I'm actually filling a POJO from my row. Okay, and I can do some transformations there, and this is pure Java code. I can do whatever transformation I want to do. This code is going to be executed in the executor, so that's why it also needs to be serialized. as you see here, so that Spark can actually share this class with the different executors and workers. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so if we look at what the result were for that is I'm creating a data set of books. Okay, and when I'm printing, if I go back to the code here, okay, so that's my show here. Okay, oops, that's not this show. Data set of book, it's this show. So I'm using offer ID, etc., so that's my data set of books. Okay, very similar as we did before. But when I look at my when I look into my schema, you see that the release date is actually now a bit different, as it's a struct. Okay, it's a struct which contains the date, hours, minutes, months, second, time, year, of which is a component of my date. Okay, so that's how Java is actually, Spark is actually seeing that in my POJO. And as we did before, okay, I'm going to do the opposite thing now. So I could, I'm going to create another data frame called dataframe 2. I'm just converting my books to DF. And I'm going to create a new column here called release data string. Okay, and this release data string is going to be a string concatenated as release year plus 1900, the release months by plus 1, and the release date for the day. Okay, so basically I'm going to create, and you can see it at the bottom here, I'm creating a date represented as a string. Okay, and finally what I can actually do here is I can convert my release date as a date and drop the release date as a string. Okay, so that's why this one here is a date, and it's going to be in my schema. When I look at my schema for release date as a date. Okay, if I don't drop it, you will see another release date as string in string here. Okay, and that's it. That's the kind of manipulation you can be doing. So in a nutshell, dataset as is storing data, distributed data. There's a special dataset called a Dataframe, which is a dataset of row which you are going to use most frequently. But if you want to play for some reason with existing POJOs or existing process that actually iterating your POJOs, or you've got specific operation, you can combine those POJOs fairly easily into your application and convert back on them. There's an impact, okay, there's a cost impact as you convert, for sure, but it might be also pretty useful to be able to do this conversion, and that's one of the flexibility of Spark. So that concludes this episode of Data Friday. I hope you enjoyed it, and I am trying to change a little bit the format and having some guests join, so look forward for that to have and that to come, and well, see you next Friday for an episode of Data Friday. Thank you. Bye.